Welcome back to Let's Talk Forestry. We're here today in the county of Louth to talk to Norah Byrne. This broadleaf forest has been part planted using the acres scheme and the other part planted under Afforestation Scheme. Let's see what Sean has to say about his forestry journey to date.
I always had a love of trees because in my younger days I loved shooting and going out with my dog, and invariably before the day was out I would end up in a wood of some kind or other, and I suppose it was from there I got a love of trees. First of all, I engaged with Teagasc. I got great advice, in particular initially from Kevin O'Connell. I have to mention his name. He's so passionate about trees, and if anyone has any doubt in their mind, if they're thinking and they come across Kevin, they won't have any doubt after Kevin, because he's so passionate and he's a wonderful man, and his knowledge of trees is second to none. I was getting more interested still, and I said if I could find some little course that would help me along the road to minding my trees, I would do it. And fortunately there was a one-year course in Ballyhaise in County Cavan College, and I enrolled for that as a mature, very mature student. I got accepted, and my tutors, Linda Coughlin and John Crawford, they couldn't have been any nicer to me, and I was in among young lads half my age and less. And I also must mention there was another man involved in the education of the course, and that was Arthur Cairns, who was the engineering background and backup to the two tutors of the classroom, and he was excellent. He gave us all we needed to know about chainsaws, quads, tractors, winches, felling. It was a well worth decision to take to go and do the course, and as a consequence I'm extremely happy and very, very comfortable now in minding my trees. I think I will always be planting trees until I'm able to dig a hole in the ground, no matter if it's only one or two at a time. I love broadleaves. I love the woodlands that I walked through in my younger days. I have had no experience of walking through coniferous forests, and I suppose innately that's what set me on the road to go broadleaves, and in particular then I decided to go oak. The oak is a wonderful tree, as we all know. It sustains such a varied insect life, and consequently for the birds that's a wonderful thing. It's just a majestic tree, and I went predominantly for that. In hindsight now, and with the knowledge of the course that I did in Ballyhaise, yes, I would mix it. I would have added in something like rowan, some native Irish of course, some cherry, and possibly a few holly as well within the oak tree plantation, but that's hindsight. I might do some more forestry, who knows, and I could consider all those things. I have another small little patch of beech which I put in mainly for the pigeons. They love the mast, and I was trying to cater for everything. Unfortunately, in hindsight, it might not have been the best site for beech. It's pretty heavy ground and tends to retain moisture a lot, so some of the beech just didn't do well, and as a consequence to that I stitched in other species to fill the gaps where I lost some beech. And I'll just point there, here's the lovely, these two here are rowan tree. I put that variety in, and I'm quite pleased that I have that mixture now. It wasn't a dead loss. I have birch here, as you can see, and also behind me I stitched in a few Scots pine, which are doing nicely. I made the best of a bad lot. Two items that anyone who does plant trees need to have in their armoury is a good secateurs, that's a Felco, and a good wood saw. These are cheap and cheerful. You buy them in Aldi or Lidl, and they're the life of the tree and the shape of the tree, etc. You need those. You need other gear later on, but that's for your forester or whoever is telling you. So that's where I am at this stage with my beech. I hope to tin it now soon, the ones that are capable of being tinned, and I will continue to mind and do the best I can with the stitched in varieties that are not anywhere near the height of this specimen here behind me, but in time there will be. Well, I did have to buy new plants myself after the planting wasn't so successful. I would emphasize that make sure whatever you're planting and whatever you're supposed to be putting in the ground, that it has a proper label on it and that it has the right age on it and its origin, etc. Because if you're going to have any chance at all of success, your plants need to be healthy. And the other thing, if I suppose connected to that, would be time of planting. To give the plants the best chance they can, get them in December if you can, and you can get the plants, which isn't always possible, but try and at least have finished by the end of February. After that, you run the risk that if it comes the wrong year, the wrong summer, a hot summer, your little plants have not established their roots in the ground, and consequently they will struggle. That's my advice now. I'm not giving any more advice. I like to spend as much time as I can. Depending on what jobs are afoot, you could be at it the whole time if you want it. If you wanted to have it pristine, but it's not about being pristine either. There is biodiversity, so you have to be mindful of that and let plants and weeds, if you like, mature and provide some food for the wildlife. This acre scheme is a particularly nice one. It's eco-landscaping, if you like. You're providing biodiversity and habitats for our wildlife, which is very important. Acres is a lovely thing. I first heard of it through Teagasc, and acres stands for Agri-Climate Rural Environmental Scheme, right? You could call it eco-landscaping. The whole idea is for the environment and to give food to our wildlife, our birds and whatever else. And I was fortunate that I had a man called John Brophy who was stationed in Drogheda, Teagasc, and he was an enormous help in getting me the forms filled in and getting applied and accepted 2 acres. There's a mix that you must pick from. I have oak, birch, alder, cherry, which is a lovely tree too. And rather than going round the perimeter of the fields with the trees, I asked if it could be in a block form. To my pleasant surprise, yes, it was agreed and accepted that if I wished to do it, I had an advantage, I suppose. I had that end of it wired already for forestry, so that cut down the cost of actually fencing off the plots. I planted them before I got my good neighbour John McCann, who's a fencing contractor, and he has fenced everything I've ever asked down the years, and he's so obliging, and the quality of his work is lovely. I collared them for their own protection in the early stage. You could say they don't need it now because I have them all barbed wired, 4 strands with chicken wire to keep all that out. I agreed to plant 300, but in fact I got carried away with myself. I planted 400 and I have no regrets on that. And I planted them all myself with pit planting. You know, I didn't just put a notch in the ground and stick it in. I actually dug a hole. I don't use herbicide, as you can see. You might say, God, it looks a bit hairy or whatever. It is, but that's because you're not supposed to trim anything until at least July, the 1st of July. I might still try and get some hay off it. I trim around them, which you must be very careful with. You could just, in an instant, get rid of one of them. I've lost maybe 2 or 3 in the process, to be honest, you know, but I'm very mindful of that. But I prefer it to herbicides. Later on then, when they're maybe that height, you'll start taking the secateurs to them and taking off the side branches, the large side branches. You wouldn't take too much either, because let's face it, photosynthesis, it needs leaves, and the more leaves that are there in the beginning to take in the nutrients and to feed the roots and to grow the tree, the better. So you don't go too early with your secateurs. You might like a little spindle. I might have made that mistake myself in the beginning. Oh, this is lovely and tidy. Mightn't be the right thing, you know. Let them grow a bit before you intervene. Sure, as I said earlier, I love trees. I like being among them, and acres is just a little extension of that. Getting into the acre scheme, very easy, much more accessible and less complicated and less bureaucracy with form filling and trying to get things started and going. No, it was lovely, it was easy. Of course, you wouldn't do any of these works only for the government supports and the plantation grants and the erecting of the wire. That's all very important to fence in. You have to keep your deer and your rabbits and hares out. Hares especially can do untold damage. So you must be mindful of that, and you couldn't do that without the support of the government, and then the premiums to follow on from that. Now, as well as that, it's not in at this stage, but it would be nice to be further acknowledged that people go to the bother and giving so much of their time, their own personal time, to plant woodland and to mind it and be involved in it and to spread the good news that we are here only for a short time and that we should leave things as good, if not better, than we got them. Carbon credits is a thing that could be brought about to acknowledge people who are farming less intensively, more with the environment in mind and with their trees and everything. That could be a thing for the future, and it would be a positive and a healthy thing if it was acknowledged that with all what's going on in our environment and our climate change, that carbon is the thing that we must try and keep under control, and hence a few carbon credits wouldn't go astray, especially smaller farmers, I think, who are very tuned in to the like of this, small little plots or small plantations. I have 2 children. They're not with us now, they've fled the nest. I've always tried to get them into the woodland as often as I could, and it's so important for them. It just, you know, and not alone that, but for myself. After a busy week's work, there's nothing nicer than walking through your own trees, you know. And I involved my children in doing some of the jobs, the weeding around them, etc. And I hope, maybe not apparent now, but in their lifetime and later in life, when life changes, that they will appreciate it. It's so important, not to mention the benefit to the environment of trees. The sequestering of carbon is primary. You must do that. You must be aware of that because you're helping the environment so much. And as well as that, this looks wild and ragged, etc. And it is, and that's what forests are. But it has nature written all over it. It's a habitat for birds, insects. That's what I love. When I'm long gone, this is what sustains me. These trees will be here for the next generation and maybe the next one. And I have left that. If I've done nothing else in my life, I've left that little legacy. That gives me great joy.
That's all for this month on Let's Talk Forestry. Hope you enjoyed the video. We'll be back next month interviewing another forest owner at a different stage in a forest life cycle. Don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe to our channel. Thank you to all those who have already subscribed and left their comments to our previous episodes. All comments are read and replied to. We look forward to reading more of your comments. See you next month.